Hi everyone, I'm Brenda Cardinal of stampintulip.stampinup.net, and I want to thank you for joining us for our September 2021 Stampin' Class by Mail. This month's class features the Penguin Place bundle by Stampin' Up. I've teamed up with fellow demonstrator Gina Wieselman to offer these monthly classes by mail. This month it's Gina's turn to show you how to stamp and assemble your cards, and next month it'll be my turn. Stay tuned to the end of the video for a sneak peek of the cards I designed for October and for some bonuses for signing up for that class. Have fun making your cards. Here's Gina.
Thanks, Brenda. Hi everyone, I'm Gina Wieselman of mysweetpaper.com, and I can't wait to show you how to stamp and assemble your cards using Stampin' Up's Penguin Place bundle. You can find this bundle in Stampin' Up's July to December 2021 mini catalog. From the bundle, we'll be using the Penguin Place stamp set and the Penguin Builder punch, as well as two celebration items, the Penguin Playmates Designer Series paper and Bedazzling specialty paper. We'll be using some embellishments, including subtle shimmer sequins, blue adhesive backed gems, and the 2021-2023 in color jewels. If you ordered a class by mail kit from either Brenda or me, all the embellishments and paper are cut to size and ready to go. Just grab your stamp set and gather the rest of your supply items. Misty Moonlight, Fresh Freesia, Calypso Coral, and Memento Tuxedo Black ink pads, Stampin' Seal adhesive, multi-purpose liquid glue, Stampin' Dimensionals, mini Stampin' Dimensionals, tear and tape adhesive, paper snips, a bone folder, and assorted clear blocks. Please reach out to either Brenda or me if you need any supplies or would like more information about hosting an event or becoming a Stampin' Up demonstrator. Let's get started. Our first card is the Penguin and Friends Fun Fold. If you ordered a class by mail kit from either Brenda or me, everything you need is cut to size and ready to go. If you didn't take the class by mail, go ahead and pause the video here, cut all your parts and pieces, and come back when you're ready to stamp and assemble. I'm a firm believer in stamping first, just in case you make any mistakes. So we are going to start with our Misty Moonlight ink pad and the Season's Greetings stamp. I'm just going to ink that up and stamp this in the lower right of the basic white cardstock. The only other stamping that we will do is using the snowflakes, and I have some scratch paper in the background here, but I just wanted to add a little bit more decoration to the inside of the card. Okay. And then, of course, if you wanted to, you could stamp that same snowflake border along the edge of the envelope. And that's all of our stamping for this design. With our stamping complete, we can go ahead and get started on our assembly. First, I'm going to take my Fresh Freesia card base and fold along that score line using the bone folder to get a nice crease. And then using our Stampin' Seal adhesive, I'm going to add the inner greeting panel. And as I adhere this, I'm just aiming for equal borders on all sides. Next, I'll take this striped Designer Series paper, add my Stampin' Seal to that, and adhere that to the front. Now, if you look at this, the bottom and the top lines of the Designer Series paper should line up with the basic white panel that's on the inside. Next, I'm going to go ahead and assemble this diamond piece. So I'll just adhere the Misty Moonlight on top of the Fresh Freesia. And then we're going to attach this panel to the card front. So before I add my adhesive, just some notes about positioning. First, from top to bottom, we want to center it. So it's pretty easy to see that just a tiny little sliver of the basic white will show through. And then we also want to center it left to right. So what that means is we are not going to have very much overlap with the adhesive. So the way that I'm going to apply the adhesive is just a little bit on the flap, and then I'll do a little bit on one of the corners. So now I can bring this in, and I'm just positioning it lightly to make sure I like where it's at. And once I'm satisfied, I will go ahead and apply pressure. Next, we'll go ahead and add our character, our Penguin and Friends characters. So you'll get 3 different characters with your kit: the polar bear, the cute little penguin, and the fox with a scarf. And I'm just going to adhere these using our Stampin' Seal again. Now you notice mine are already fussy cut for me, so if you haven't already done that, you would want to pull out your paper snips and go ahead and fussy cut around. And then to apply my sequins, I'm just going to play around with the positioning a little bit and see what looks good. And you'll notice there are 2 different sizes. There's large and small, and different colors. Now that I like where I have my sequins approximately, I'm going to come in with my liquid multi-purpose glue and just add a couple of tiny little dots and then position each of the sequins. Now, I actually prefer placing these just using my fingers, but if you wanted a little bit more help with a tool, our Take Your Pick tool is really a great option for this too. And this glue does take a little while to dry, so you'll just want to make sure to leave it sit until those sequins are secured. And that is our first card design. Our second design is the sliding penguin card. And here are the parts and pieces for this design. Once again, we're going to start with our stamping, and again, we'll be starting with the Misty Moonlight ink pad. And we're actually also going to be using our little snowflake again. So I will start, and this I thought was such a cute idea, to just stamp some of these snowflakes right on the designer series paper. And it just adds some nice depth and dimension, also ties in the color scheme with the Misty Moonlight that we have other places in the card. So you can randomly stamp some of those snowflakes. And then I'm also going to stamp some across the top of my basic white card insert. So there were 2 of these larger basic white pieces, exactly the same size for the inside and outside. So just pick one of them. And then once again, I just love adding a little bit of decor to the envelope. So I stamped along the left edge. Now I have 3 remaining pieces of basic white cardstock. They're all the same width, but we are going to be layering them up to build this card front. So the largest one, we won't be stamping on at all. So I'm just going to set that one aside. The next largest one is what we're going to use to make this front layer with the greeting and the penguin. So I'm going to grab my greeting stamp. It says, "Be cool, be chill, be merry," and just stamp that in the lower left corner. Then I'm going to take this hill stamp and I'm going to add that. Now, as I stamp this, the things that I want to note are, I want it to be higher on the left and lower on the right, but I also want to make sure that I have enough space for that little penguin at the top. So I don't want to go all the way to the top of this. I'm going to put it down so that it starts maybe 1.5 inches from the top on the left. The other thing to note about this is I'm going to stamp off once so that I get not quite the full intensity of color there. Then with this other element, I'm going to create this hill again. And you can play around with this, with how you want the hill that's in the background to be positioned. And really, it only takes a pretty small chunk to layer behind here. So if you get the slope kind of off, you'll probably be able to rotate that around and work with it a little bit. But what I'm aiming for here is I want a layered look. So if our first slope was like this, I'm just going to turn it so that I get a different angle. And you see what I just did? I stamped in full strength. You don't want to do that. So let's flip it over. And this is a pretty dark ink. So if you notice, I flipped it so that that's on the bottom. And that way there's no risk of it showing through. All right, let's try that. So we have our 2 hill elements. While I have my Misty Moonlight ink out, I'm going to go ahead and take this little hat and just stamp that on the little piece of scrap paper. And next up, we're going to continue building our penguin. So I have my Memento Tuxedo Black ink pad here, and I'm going to go ahead and get my penguin really inky, and then position him or her sliding down that hill. And of course, our penguin needs his little beak and feet, so I'm going to bring out my Calypso Coral ink pad and those 2 stamps and just go ahead and add them. And I just love these photopolymer stamps because I can see right through, I can get it all lined up the way I want, and have a cute little penguin. That is all of our stamping, but we have some fussy cutting to do on this card. So I'm going to get out my paper snips, and the first thing that I'm going to cut is this stamped front panel. And I'm just going to come along and cut around the penguin. Now, fussy cutting, I know some people find it relaxing, some people absolutely hate it. I'm thinking of one particular stamping friend right now, and you'll know who you are when you watch this video. But my biggest tip for fussy cutting is turning the paper and not the scissors. So I'm keeping my scissors in one position and rotating the paper. Okay, that's the hardest part, getting around that little penguin foot. This part is pretty easy. I'll just fussy cut along the top edge. And then finally, our little hat. All right, with that fussy cutting complete, we are ready to assemble. So I'm going to take my card base and crease along the score line. I just love this soft seafoam color. And then I'm going to go ahead and first adhere the panel that I stamped for the inside. So I'll be using my Stampin' Seal adhesive for this. And like usual, just aiming for equal borders on all 4 sides. And next, I'm going to take the larger piece of basic white cardstock. It's the same size as the one inside, but it is not stamped. And I'm going to adhere the designer series paper to it. Makes me a little sad seeing such cute little critters on the back side, and I'm going to cover them up, but that's okay. And with this, we want equal borders on the 3 sides that are visible. Next, we'll be adding our 2 layers of hills. And you can play around with this a little bit. If you want this hill to be higher or lower, you don't have to feel like you need to line it up perfectly with the corners, because you can always trim the excess. So if you even wanted like a different angle, you could put it off to the side. You'll just want to make sure that there's no gap in the middle. So just to show you what that can look like, maybe I'll do this. So again, I'm gonna bring this, oopsies, penguin back out. He will be lined up with the 4 or the 2 corners. So I want to make sure that I don't accidentally leave gaps. So I'll adhere this down, and then before I add the penguin, I'll just come back with my paper snips and trim along the edges. Okay. The penguin is going to get added with dimensionals. So before I put him on, I am going to just go ahead and get this adhered to my card base. And it looks like I maybe didn't get quite enough. And actually, since this is going to be covered up, I'm just going to kind of sloppy trim on the bottom there. And I will bring out my regular size dimensionals and my mini dimensionals for this. And I'll start with the full size and add them to this front panel. And I tend to be pretty generous with dimensionals. I just don't want to risk my card sagging in the middle. I might even add a little mini one right there. Peel off those release papers. And then go ahead and position this so that it is lined up with the other layers, and add some pressure. For adding the hat, I'm actually going to adhere it in 2 ways. One is with a mini dimensional, so I'm going to put that on the back. And then I also just want to make sure that it is somewhat attached to the penguin's head. So I'm going to come in with my liquid multi-purpose glue and just put the tiniest little amount right along that edge. Now I'll peel up my release paper and put that cute little hat on the penguin. And with the combination of dimensional and multi-purpose liquid glue, that should not go anywhere. And our last element is one of our blue adhesive back gems. And I always find it easiest just to use a tweezer to do that. And I'm going to put it right on the little pom-pom. And there is our second card design. And our final design is the birthday penguin pocket card. And here are the parts and pieces for this card. For our stamping and assembly of this card, I am actually going to break my always stamp first rule because the placement of the penguin really matters to make sure that it looks like she's sitting along that ledge. So I'm actually going to start by assembling my card base with this little pocket fun fold. So I'll take my Just Jade card base and fold along the score line using my bone folder. And then I'm going to pop that flap back open and bring in my tear and tape adhesive. Now, if you had Stampin' Seal Plus, you could absolutely use that as well. But the thing I liked about tear and tape is that it's narrow, so I can make sure it's very close to the edge, which is important so that we maintain the pocket functionality. So I'm just going to put a small piece on each side, peel up that paper. It is kind of tricky to peel up sometimes. There we go. And then I'm just going to adhere it. I am applying some firm pressure here, just because this could take a little bit more wear and tear, given that we're sliding things in and out. And next, I'm going to get my regular Stampin' Seal and apply that to the Designer Series paper and center this on the portion that is folded up. Now we know that this assembly is ultimately going to slide into the pocket. And so I'm just going to position this as we see here. And we want to see about where our penguin is going to sit. And to do that, I also want to make note of where this bedazzling paper is going to be, because that all is going to factor in. So if I want my penguin centered and up high enough, that kind of gives me a sense of where I might want the balloon to be. So I'm going to take my fresh Freesia ink pad, and the first thing I'm going to stamp is the balloon in fresh Freesia. So as I do this, I want the balloon to be very much near the top of the basic white, but I'm paying attention to where the string would go. Okay. With that balloon stamped, I'm actually going to pull this pocket piece out and do a little bit of work with my Memento black ink pad. So I'm going to add the balloon string. I'm also going to stamp Happy Birthday right in the balloon there, which is so cute. And then the other black stamping that I'm going to do is the little eyes on this penguin punch piece. I absolutely love this penguin builder punch. When I look at this, of course, I see a penguin, but there are some super creative people out there, people like Don Olszewski, who looked at this and saw other creatures and possibilities as well. So make sure to watch to the end of this and get the link to the Pinterest board, because you can see a lot of different ideas for how you can use the punch. Now I also, while we're stamping, am just going to pull out the little beak and add it to the penguin as well. And in terms of placement, I played around a little bit, and the thing that I noticed is I wanted to put the beak down farther. So if you're in doubt, don't listen to your instinct and put it up higher. It can go as close to really even almost touching that dip in the punch. The other stamping that I did, you know, I like decorative envelopes, so I stamped a cute balloon on my envelope as well. Okay, I'm going to get started with my assembly. And the first thing that I'm going to do is add this bedazzling paper to the side of my basic white, because I often trim these a little bit long just so there's no shortage. And because of that, I want to get this on first and trim it up. So I'm going to use my multi-purpose liquid glue for this, just a really thin strip of it. And I like this when I'm lining things up at the edge because it shifts around a little bit. So as long as I don't let it set, I can shift and make sure that it's perfectly lined up. Then I'll bring in my paper snips right away, and from the back, just trim that little excess. Okay, next we will go ahead and get our Stampin' Seal. And we will adhere this assembly to the fresh Freesia piece. And I'm just going to slide that right in the little pocket here. And this is cut so that there will be an equal border on all three sides when you have it fully inserted in the pocket. Now, before we go ahead and assemble our little penguin and attach her to the card, we are going to learn from my mistake that it's really hard to stamp this little bow once the penguin is already popped up without getting ink where you don't want it. So, learning from my mistake, we're going to just lay the penguin on the card, and I'm positioning it so that the little string runs through the penguin hand and the bottom of the penguin is butting right up against the designer series paper. And I'm just going to hold that there, ink up the bow, and stamp that down. And now if I did happen to get any ink on the black, it of course wouldn't show up. And that way I can make sure that I don't mess up my card right at the very end. So I'm just going to assemble the penguin using my liquid multi-purpose glue, and we'll just add the white to the black and then the two cute little penguin feet. And it doesn't take a whole lot of adhesive to stick these on. Of course, you could always use a mini glue dot, that would work well too. And then to attach this little penguin, I'm going to keep the card in the pocket, and I'm going to add some mini Stampin' Dimensionals, and I'm going to add them making sure that I don't get too close to the bottom, because again, we need this penguin to look like she is sitting on the ledge. So I'll just position it so that the bow is on the side of the head, the ribbon or the balloon string is in the hand, and the penguin is sitting on the ledge. And the very last touch is one of these really pretty 2021-2023 in color jewels. And I couldn't decide if the large or the small looked better, so you probably received both in your kit. And that is our third and final card design. One of the bonuses of the Stampin' Class by Mail is seeing some additional samples with ideas for how to use your supplies. So this sample, you'll notice it's the same kind of fold as one of our designs, even the same color of cardstock and designer series paper, but instead of putting the fussy cut little penguin friends on the Misty Moonlight cardstock, I went ahead and did some stamping with the little penguin going down the hill here. This card is really similar to the other pocket fun fold card that we put together. We have our penguin sitting on the ledge and the little balloon, but this time instead of stamping happy birthday in the balloon, I popped it up over here with that really pretty bedazzling paper behind it. I was on a bit of a roll with this cute little penguin and the balloon. So for this one, I actually made a fun fold that opens up like this. And I thought this was a cute and fun way to showcase a couple of the designer series paper patterns, but still keeping this cute little penguin. And of course, we could stamp happy birthday right in the balloon instead of having that here on this panel as well. I just thought that this penguin sliding down the hill was so cute. And for this one, I stamped some of the trees in our Just Jade, and then I wanted the penguin to be holding onto the balloon trailing behind him. So it's attached with some of our baker's twine. I just love this designer series paper. It is a celebration item, so you can earn it for free with a $50 Stampin' Up purchase. And I really just wanted to put this card together to show off a couple of the patterns of designer series paper. So I just put my greeting off to the side here and used some of the fresh Freesia open weave ribbon. And this one is a very similar layout, again showing off a couple of the designer series paper patterns. But instead of ribbon, I just bridged that border of the two papers with some Just Jade cardstock. And then I went ahead and punched out the penguin and added the stamped details of the eyes, beak, and the cute little bow tie. So this is another way to use that bow tie. In our design, we used it off on the head to look like a hair bow, but of course it can also be a bow tie. I probably spent more time fussy cutting creatures and figures from the designer series paper than I should have, but it's just so cute, and you could make dozens of cards just using the shapes in the designer series paper. So for this one, I used the designer series paper here. I cut out this snowman from the paper. Again, I used the bedazzling specialty paper, which is a celebration item. And then I stamped the snowflakes and the little hill image by stamping off to make it a little bit lighter, but I also added this layer of vellum to give it kind of a softer, snowier appearance. This card was fun to put together, again using one of the little designer series paper creatures. And I used the Scalloped Contours dies to get this kind of banner rectangular piece. Just added a little piece of the designer series paper and then popped up our little penguin friend. This layout is actually quite similar to the previous one. Again, using the Scalloped Contours dies, but a bigger one. And so a bigger piece of the designer series paper, a couple of the little creatures, and then the greeting, which I punched using the banner triple punch and layered that up multiple times. And this final card is actually one that we put together at our monthly team gathering among Stampin' Up demonstrators. Each month, a group of demonstrators and I get together on Zoom and we talk about Stampin' Up developments, new products, etc. But we always also make some fun projects. And Brenda Cardinal is nice enough to cut and prep the supplies and ship them to us each month. So it's like a little mini class by mail every month just for demonstrators. And this card is a fun fold that Sue McNeil actually put together and demonstrated this month at our team meeting. So it opens up and it has that cute little penguin feature on the circle. And I also just love that you get some of the surprise designer series paper pattern inside. To see a little bit more of that paper being showcased.
Thanks for showing us how to make those adorable penguin cards, Gina. If you ordered a class kit from either Gina or me, make sure to follow the link in the email that shared this video with you to access a specially curated Pinterest page with even more fun ideas of how to make use of your Penguin Place materials. October is my turn to design and share the cards with you, and I'm excited to show you a sneak peek of the card designs featuring the Pretty Pumpkins bundle by Stampin' Up. This bundle can be found in the July to December 2021 mini catalog. You'll receive all the supplies you'll need to make 3 each of the 3 card designs, including envelopes. And one of our cards is a fun fold. All you need to do is add the stamp set, inks, and adhesives. From the Pretty Pumpkins bundle, we'll be using the Pretty Pumpkins stamp set and the detailed pumpkin dies. We're drawing our color scheme from the Blackberry Beauty Suite, also from the mini catalog. From this suite, we'll be using the gold shimmer vellum, the gold 3/8 inch shimmer ribbon, and the Blackberry specialty paper. As an added layer and texture for one of our cards, we'll also be using the cork specialty paper. One of our cards features a coloring technique, and we'll be using blender pens for this technique. A blender pen will be included with your class supplies if you haven't already received one in a previous class. We'll be using some elements that have been punched and die cut for you if you ordered a class kit from either Gina or me. These elements include things from Banners Pick-a-Punch, detailed pumpkin dies, the scalloped contour dies, and the stitched rectangle dies. Our ink colors include Cinnamon Cider, Mossy Meadow, and Rich Razzleberry. And the adhesives we'll be using are multi-purpose liquid glue, mini glue dots, mini Stampin' Dimensionals, and Stampin' Seal. The deadline to register for this class is October 5th, 2021. However, if you register for this class by September 27th, 2021, we have a special bonus for you. With your October class kit, we'll include 2 completed cards with envelopes from our stash. We also have some bonuses if you find new friends to take our Stampin' class by mail, so be sure to check your email or reach out to either Gina or me to learn more. If you're not already on one of our email lists, please contact Gina or me to learn more about this, about hosting a Stampin' Up party, other fun stamping opportunities, or of course to learn more about joining the Stampin' Up family. We always appreciate any feedback you have about our Stampin' class by mail, and until next month, happy stamping!